What's up, everybody? Welcome to the 42nd episode of the Weekly Chime. Today we got Brad with the Kiger Group. You're in DC, right?
Yeah.
Well,
DC market in North Carolina.
DC and North Carolina. Cool. Today we're talking expansion. We're talking growth. We're going to have a lot of fun because it's just Brad and I today. I think Randy is EXPCon this week, and then Tristan is, God only knows what Tristan is up to. He's probably doing something fun in Malibu. But Brad, it's you and I running the show. So let's talk expansion. Let's talk about you. How did you get started into real estate? Like, what did you do before real estate? Let's put it that way.
A lot of things. I was a golf pro.
Nice.
And I was a school teacher.
Okay.
And then I sold one house and I quit teaching. That's basically what happened.
What was the drive to get into real estate?
Just money. I was making in DC, I actually made probably more money than any other. They pay the most of anywhere in the country, maybe besides like New York City. But I don't know. I was making like 65, and I was trying to look at we were thinking about having kids, and my wife, made about the same money that I did, maybe a little less even. So I was like, I need to make an extra like 20, 30 grand a year. So that's when I got my real estate license was, hey, I got summers off, weekends, whatever, I can make some extra money. So I got licensed in like February of 2016. And then school let out in June. I sold a house in that summer, and I was like, I ain't going back. So I quit teaching and just went full on into real estate in a market that we'd only lived there 2 years in DC. So I didn't know anybody.
Right.
A very small sphere. And actually, my only buddy bought a house like 3 months before I got licensed, which was a big bummer. But yeah, I did the whole, I was with Keller Williams. I did Bold. I was FSBOs, expired, open houses, door knocking. I worked all the time. I sold 39 houses my first year, and then I sold 70 the next year, and then like 120 the year after that. And then we wanted to move back to North Carolina. So we moved back to North Carolina. I still have my team in DC, and I mainly focus now on, I've kind of shifted my focus to the investor side of real estate. So
awesome.
Where I'm at now.
You and I got started into real estate a very similar way. Mine was, I was an air traffic controller with the FAA, and then I started selling houses. I was like, man, this is way better. And then I did the same thing you did. I grew it from very small, and I went big with it. It's a fun and addicting career, but it's fun because people like us, we aren't lifetime real estate agents. You started in 16. I started beginning at 16. So what I want to talk about though is you started as a single agent and then you grew. How many teammates do you have now?
I've had as many as 14.
Okay.
And I've got 6 now.
What would you say the biggest mistake was that you made on your path of growing a team?
Having 14 people.
Yeah, okay. We're in the same boat here. I noticed the same thing.
To be accountable to 4.
Exactly.
I think that growth is like, I've kind of gone to a place where I'm going to let it, not necessarily organically, but more organically than trying to force it. Because I think when you try to force it, you put yourself into positions that you don't need to be in, right? Like if you're like, okay, I got to hire this person or that. I mean, agents are okay. I mean, they technically don't cost money, but they do because they cost time and resources. If they're taking leads, if they're, so that's a big misconception, is that agents don't cost money. I would rather even pay them $2 or $3 grand a month, so I know, like, hey, like that way I'm like dead on them about, hold them accountable to the standards and all that. So, oh man, I forgot to plug in my computer.
That's all right.
That would be bad.
I've what I would like to say on that is that I would say I see a lot of agents that come in, and the first thing they want to do is they want to hire a buyer's agent. And then they want to hire a second buyer's agent because they want to stop working buyers. Did you go the buyer route, the buyer agent route, or what route did you go what was your first hire?
It was actually really smart. Now, when I look back on it, I'm like, what I did was actually, and I had coaching, I was in coaching, so they helped me with it, but
sure.
I basically found a guy. It was smart in the beginning, but it ended up hurting me in the long run. I had a guy that we got licensed at the same time. I went off like a rocket. He hadn't sold a house yet in about a year. And we spent a lot of time together, became good, became buddies. And he was a very SC, like administrative type personality. And I basically said, hey, I'll pay you, I think it was $2,000 a month. For you to basically do all my paperwork that I don't want to do. Because at the time I still had a transaction coordinator that was like $400 a file, something like that. And I said, and you can do all of my showings for me, right? Like, when I can't do a showing, you can do it, right? Because I didn't totally try to pass off buyers because, I was making $20,000 paychecks, at that time. So, that's kind of how I got my first kind of piece of leverage was transaction coordinator, which was virtual, which did all the contract to close, listing agreements, et cetera, et cetera. And then he stepped in and did the administrative work that they wouldn't do, plus helping me with the buy sides and like filling in for open houses, like, that kind of stuff. So what ended up happening was he wasn't the right fit for really any of those jobs. And so like over the, and then of course, like as I grew, I started paying him more. And then, it just kind of grew into this, like, I did it with two people actually, where it just grew into a bad situation, where, I got these people that I'm paying, $60,000 to $80,000 a year that, anyway, so that's what it went, right? It was like, well, it was really smart in the beginning, but I didn't, transition them quick enough or put them in the right seat on the bus. I was just kind of like, hey, dude, I'll just throw work that I didn't want to do at people.
Sure.
And that's probably not the best way to do things. So
you were learning on the fly is what you were doing. And we've all been there. All of us have been there. Okay. So then you grew it, and now you're heavy on the investing side. Let's talk about the investing side. So you buy what? You said 3 homes a month. Is that what you're buying right now in North Carolina?
Yeah, about 3 a month. Next year, I'm going to get it up to 5.
Okay. What do you do with those?
It depends on it. It's really, I'm trying to figure out what's like the system of how to, like, what do I do with the house once I have it under contract, right? Because the options are basically, wholesale it, buy it and wholesale it, or buy it and flip it, and then buy it and hold it. So you basically have 4 options from the time you get a contract. I very rarely wholesale. I think I've only done 1 or 2 in the last year. And that was mainly like, hey, I got something under contract. I got a bunch under contract, got busy, and then had an investor buddy that was like, oh, I'll take that deal, and just kind of like pass it off, So that's not my main goal. That's not what I do. So, it depends based on cash flow. That's the biggest thing, right? Cash flow, because investor side is a big cash suck, right? Like, so even with like hard money and whatever else, like my average deal has about 50 to 60,000 in cash in it, even with private money, hard money, like, et cetera, et cetera. So, it depends on where I'm at with cash flow, but my goal is to do a third. Okay, so a third that I hold on to is rentals. A third by doing the burst strategy, right? Cash out refi, all my cash back out, put a tenant in it or Airbnb it. I'm doing Airbnb is what I'm mostly doing right now, just because I want to get the monthly cash flow up as high as possible, and then I'll start converting them to long-term rentals. Traditional long-term rentals down the road. But so then a third of them being wholesale. So basically buy them, clean them up, put them on the market, not really a flip, maybe like some pressure washing, just very, less than $5,000, turn it around in a week, put it on the market. And then the last third being, full flips, going in with 4 to 6 week, 30 to 50, $60,000 renovation projects. So that's the channel that I run it through is basically I get the deal and I go, all right, what is this really best? Like, what's my financial position right now? And then what's this deal best suited for? Right? Is it best suited? Is it like, hey, let's just clean it up, put it on the market, make 15 to 20 and going down the road? Or is it one that needs a ton of work? Because you can only do that if the house is in pretty good shape because you're trying to appeal to a retail customer.
Sure.
Right. Someone that's looking for something that might need, a little bit of work, but isn't a complete gut, So yeah, so just trying to get some clarity on that. But I think that's pretty much my system is
sure.
Get it under contract and then figure it
out. Now the question becomes, how do you find those properties?
That's a great question. So it's funny. It's a lot of the same as residential retail, right? It's we do some pay-per-click, we do some direct mail, we have cold callers. So like we used to call expireds and FSBOs. Now all of my cold callers just call high equity, absentee, tax lien, pre-foreclosure. So they're really, and then as far as mailing, we mail those lists as well as probates. That's probably about 50% of the deals comes from that like lead generation side. And then 50% of the deals come from referrals or right off MLS. A lot of by referrals, I mean agent referrals. So I'm really diligent about letting folks know, like in my brokerage, I'm really active on Facebook about, showing, the proper, the things that I'm doing, mainly because I want to attract other agents that whenever they have a deal, they call me.
Right.
And I'd like to kind of transition more, it's just like a residential sales business, right? Like you can do all this lead generation and keep banging down the doors of expireds and FSBOs and whatever else, but the easiest business is always referral.
Right.
And in the investor side, the referrals come from just real estate agents that get a deal that, the owner doesn't want to put it on MLS or whatever. And then just being that outlet for them to look to whenever they want to, when they need a cash offer or an off market type deal.
Sure. So you mentioned just briefly there, you said people that are calling. Do you have ISAs that are calling for you? How are you getting those people to call?
Yeah. So I've got 2 in-house and one that's like outsourced. And they essentially just dial the phone book every day. They dial about, on average, about 500 dials a day. They hit around 60 to 75 people a day. That's probably our main source, to be honest. That's about a third of where our business comes from is just the outbound dials.
That is a lot of calls a day.
It's a lot of calls, yeah. And if basically each week I pull them a list of each one gets a list of about 1,500, and that's their like lead list that week. And they'll call it 5 or 6 times, call it different times of the day because they got to split up. They need 2 or 3 hours a day for follow up also.
Where are you getting those lists? Sorry if I'm asking two personal questions here. Let me know.
I'll share anything. I'm good. I'm good, man. It's like, there's plenty of business out there. I go to PropStream. It's $100 a month. It's really simple. There's other data collection. You can skip trace through there too, but I use another company because it's cheaper called REI Skip. So I pull the list from PropStream and I filter it by like years of ownership, equity, location, all the typical, zip code. I basically do zip codes now because we're doing kind of but if I were like doing it on a smaller level, I'd probably go neighborhood by neighborhood, like if I were a single agent wanting to pull data for myself. I think that's probably the biggest opportunity, right? Is if you're an agent and only like 1 or 2% of people are ever going to sell their home themselves or expire off the market. So if you're only prospecting FSBOs and expired, you're missing 98% of potential sellers. And I think
Agreed.
that's what most people don't understand. Now, dude, they're great business. You need to, in addition to them, you need to have another prospecting lever. But yeah, we dial them and we just say, hey, I'm a local agent investor here in the area. Just curious if you'd entertain an offer on your home. It's nothing fancy. It's nothing like no magic script. It's just like, hey, you thinking, would you entertain an offer on your property? That's it.
Got it. What would you say if someone were, people are going to watch this and they're going to be like, Brad is really advanced because you are. If someone were getting into this from the very, very get-go, where would you point them and what advice would you give them?
So like in the very beginning.
Yeah. They want to do their first buy like this. They want to start getting into investing. Where would you point them?
Drive for dollars. So the other thing that we have is we have people that I do, and this is actually what I do, because I like getting out and about and kind of getting out in the field. So, if I have a project going on, I'll drive over to the house and check on it, and then I'll just start driving around the different streets, and then, and then I write down the houses that look like they need work, right? That look, either vacant or if there's a dumpster out front or whatever. And then I send those to our VA. We get them skip traced. They come back to me. I keep door hangers in my car. I put a door hanger on the door, knock on the door, say hello. It's super targeted, right? Because you can be really familiar with the neighborhood. You can be, you can see it, get a conversation started in person, door knock around it, ask the other neighbors, who do you know looking to sell? So that would be, that's the simplest, cheapest, simplest. It's just get out there, go to a neighborhood that, every market, we all know, in every market, there are neighborhoods that are flip type neighborhoods, right? They're everywhere. So, being an agent in the market, you should know kind of where those are by, and so just go over there, start running around talking to people. And the
how
other
do you secure?
Go ahead.
How do you secure the financing on it? Is that self-financed, or you'd mentioned hard money? Where would an agent go to find that kind of thing? Let's say they couldn't finance it themselves.
Right, and most can't, right? But you would go like I use a company called Lending Home, and I use another one called Temple View Capital. There's tons of hard money lenders out there, and there's a lot of private lenders out there too. If you just start asking around, there's private money. They loan at 15, 18%, but if you're really hard up, you don't have good credit, or if you don't have, because even with hard money, you got to have cash to put into the deals. That's what people don't understand is that, let's say you're going to buy a house for $150,000 and and it needs $30,000 worth of work. Well, you need about 20% to close on it, somewhere between 10 to 20% to close on it. And then you need the renovation budget up front. And then they'll reimburse you on a draw, but none of them will give you the cash to renovate it up front. That they'll want to send it out an inspector, make sure that you've done the work, and then they'll reimburse you on a draw. So, $150,000 house with a $30,000 renovation, you need typically $50,000 of cash on hand. My first deal, I kind of piecemealed it together, right? Actually, my first deal, I had $0 of my own money in, and I got 50% of the profit.
Okay. You can't just leave that. You have to explain that.
I got paid a commission on the sale. So I'm a firm believer, right? If you find a good enough deal, you can find finding the money is really not the hard part. The hard part is getting a deal under contract that is 70% of ARV minus construction cost, right? That's a deal, right? Anybody you can find money for that deal all day long. But so my first one, I basically, I had a buddy of mine, and I said, look, he's probably 60, has no kids, probably makes $120,000 a year, lives very modestly. I was like, hey man, do you happen to have $150,000 in cash laying around? And he was like, well, not laying around, but I got it, and he's like, and I'm like, that's in a savings account making you what, 2%. I was like, I think I could probably make you 25 or 30 grand on that money if you'd be interested. And he was like, yeah, for sure. So I basically walked him through the process. I'm like, hey, this is the contract that I have. The price is 110. We could probably sell it for around 210. It needs about 30 to 40 grand worth of work. He went and looked at the house and he was like, all right, let's do it. And so he bought the house. He financed the renovation. I took care of it, right? Like I coordinated the contractors and all that. But at the end of the deal, I got paid out to my LLC 50% of the profit. And I also got paid a 3% commission on the listing. So I think you just have to be creative and he's not somebody that you would think has a lot of money. You know what I'm saying, Brett?
Right. Like, oh yeah.
Normal guy. You know what I mean? Like he's not a millionaire. He's a normal guy and you would be surprised at how many normal people have that kind of cash that are in that age range, right? Like 50, 60, 70 years old that have that kind of cash on hand. If, they've been working their whole life and have been smart and saved money and et cetera. Everyone thinks that you got to go find all these millionaires, but I mean, they don't hurt, but.
Right. That doesn't hurt.
So we did that deal. We actually did that deal. The house actually sold for $250. We bought it I went under contract in November, bought it in January, renovated it, sold it in April. The ARV from the time I went under contract in November went from 210 to 250 in 6 months. That was just the market going crazy, right?
That's awesome.
So we ended up making like almost 80 grand profit on that deal, and we split it 50-50. And like, part of me was like, man, if I could have just had the hard money lined up, I could have kept all the profit. You know what I mean? So that's when I started looking for other financing, hard money, got the cash, out of that deal to be able to put into other deals. I think most people look at it like that's where like wholesalers, their goal is to be able to wholesale enough cash. Supposedly, a lot of them are trying to wholesale enough cash to be able to then finance and do their own deals.
Right.
A lot of them just wholesale. So
yeah. That's, it's interesting that this conversation ended up going a different way, but this is something we never talk about on these. And this is a side where I know a lot of people want to go, but they don't have the know-how to do it, or they don't know where to start.
Yeah, they don't have the knowledge of it, right? Because it's not a rocket science type business. You do have to have a little bit of capital, and you got to figure it's more creative. Like if you're a creative thinker, then the investor side of the business, if you're kind of a gray area creative, you can kind of get a little bit, you get creative around it, because you have to.
Yeah.
So, putting deals together. I'll tell you another deal that I did that's real funny. So this guy owed $95,000 on this house. So I go look at it and I said, all right, I'll pay you $95,000. Or I'll pay your note off, but I need to buy it subject to the mortgage. And I explained to him, we had an attorney draft it all up. So I closed. Oh no, I paid him $105. So at the closing, I wrote him a check for $10,000, which gave me possession of the property subject to his mortgage. So I didn't have to take a mortgage out on it. And then I had another investor that bought it for $135, and we closed on it. So for 10 grand, I got to make about 30 or whatever in about a month.
That's awesome.
Without only using about 8-10 grand of cash.
Yeah.
To be able to close on it and buy it subject to, and yeah.
Sure. So you operate, so that investment business is in North Carolina, right? Is it everywhere in North Carolina?
Well, pretty much, yeah. I mean, I focus on Winston-Salem, but but we kind of do, pretty much anywhere in North Carolina we can handle.
How can someone get a hold of you we know there's a few in the Chime group, specifically people that watch the YouTube channel. Everybody knows someone in North Carolina. How can they get a hold of you if they have a property, if they're an agent, they have a property of what you're looking for? How can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, Facebook, Messenger is probably the easiest, because, my name, Brad Kiger, and shoot me a message. I'm on there. And then my email is brad@thekigergroup.com.
Cool. Brad, this was super informational, man. If people aren't watching this and getting inspired about trying to go do their first investment property, they missed the mark on this one, because what I got out of this is that people should be going to try this. It's not.
The craziest thing about it is that how much it fuels a retail side of your business. Whenever you're marketing and you're putting out there and you're marketing direct offer, and you're calling, when you're getting conversations going about, hey, I want to make an offer on your property, how much that lead, how that starts the conversation towards. So, because only about 5% of homes are going to sell to a direct buyer. The rest of them are going to go to MLS. So for every 20 leads we generate, only one of them we end up buying. So what do you do at the end of 19? You send them over to your sales funnel and work them like a regular lead that raised their hand.
Right. So. It's a great way to get. Everybody wants seller leads. It's a great way to get seller leads.
I had a lady call me last week. She has a $900,000 house in Winston, wanted me to give her a direct offer. I was like, lady, this is not California, right? Like 900,000 is like the top of our market, right? Like,
sure.
And so and she wants a direct offer, and I'm like, I guess I can offer you like 550. Like, I don't even know how to buy the house. What's important to you about getting a cash offer? Oh, well, I don't want people in my house. Okay, well, if I can help you get it sold in a way that didn't have a ton of people in your home, another way that could still help you hit your goal, is that something you'd be interested in hearing more about? Yeah, okay, great. So then we move towards listing it and getting it set up virtually and moving in that direction, versus, yeah, let me just, I got 900K just laying around. Let me buy this house, it's crazy.
Right.
But that just shows you it's not just the people that have distressed properties or whatever. I get people that call me all the time for a direct offer that either they think that it's just going to be the same as a retail offer, or whatever the thinking is behind it. They'll call even though it's 100% a retail deal.
Yeah.
So
people. Some people just want it easy. They just want it done. They want it easy. They don't want a lot of stress. It makes sense.
I just bought a house yesterday for $210.
Yeah.
I offered to list it for $265. The guy didn't want to deal with the hassle. He took my $210 offer and just rolled on. So now I'm going to go list it for $265. I'm going to put it on the market next week.
Right.
Like I closed on it. He's got his money. He's super happy. I got a team going over there this week to just clean it up, pressure wash it, do a deep clean, steam clean the carpets, and it'll go on the market next week for $265.
That is awesome.
As agents, we think that everyone wants the most money, right? Do we not? Like, we're always in this mindset that people want to net the most money. They want to net the most money. It's not always 100% true. There's that fine, like you just said, there's a lot of people out there that want to push the easy button, and 50, like that guy, he basically told me like 30 grand is not going to change my life. I'd rather just be done with this. I don't want to go through whatever the perceived hassle was in his mind about how to sell a house on MLS. He didn't want to go through it for 30 grand or 40 grand or whatever. He was just ready to, boom, give me my money in 20 days and let's go on down the road.
Yeah. I think people should take away from this conversation with us. I think people should take away to have a different look. There isn't only just one way to skin a cat. Like, we've got to look at multiple ways and get more creative with the businesses as we move forward into 2022. Real estate's changing all the time. It's time to change with the changes.
And we could do a whole segment on the changes, and the biggest reason as to why I went this route is because of the changes that are happening and what's going to happen in the real estate business over the next 2-3 years.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was a brilliant plan.
If anyone is getting 6% commission in 3 to 5 years, then I will be extremely shocked. If anyone's able, or 5%, commissions are going to go to 3.5%, 4% in the next 3 to 5 years, guaranteed.
Yeah. We need to do another one of these. I need Tristan on this, because Tristan would be losing his mind right now, and he's not here. So that's it's kind of unfortunate. But he'd be sitting there. You'd see him on the screen, just like, what? You're doing what? We need to do another one of these. I think we should we should do a market prediction, one of these with like you, me, Tristan, Randy will give us, but we should get Ariel, Randy's other half on here too. We should get all of us on here predicting about what the market's going to do in the next 2 years.
I love it. Yeah. I got some very, people will think you'll be like, Brad, you're crazy. That's not going to happen. And whether it's going to be 2 or 3 years or 5 to 7, it's going to happen. You know,
yeah.
The world is changing so rapidly around our market. Just since I've been in it in 2016, it's a complete 180 from what it was in the conversations and the situations that I deal with today versus 5 years ago. They were non-existent 5 years ago.
Right.
Non-existent.
Right.
No buy buyers, no 1% commissioners, other than like the they will take some cell phone photos, you know, like the Redfin wasn't big, the Hauser. Now there's all these knockoff companies from that model.
Right.
Like we've got a couple in our market that are kind of mom and pop, basically mom and pop Redfins.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and so
I do.
It's catching on, man. And we're in a low price market too. Like this average year is like 250.
Right. Know? I want Tristan to weigh in because he's got like the Malibu high-end market. And then Randy's other half, Ariel, is down in Atlanta. Like, I mean, I think if we all weigh in on this, I think it would be a really interesting episode. So until then, Barry just gave me the signal. I have to end this, Brad. It was really nice talking to you. It was nice getting to know you. Thank you for your insight on the whole investor side of things. Like I said, that wasn't the plan of this conversation, but I'm really glad we went that route.
Yeah, man, that was awesome. Take care,
Let's do another one here soon. Take care.
Good.
See ya.